Hey everybody, I'm here with my good friend John Rosenberg. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Been talking to you about, office buildings, right? It's kind of the big news everywhere, right? Office buildings, if you guys don't know, suffering from high vacancy, mostly from work from home. It's a mess out there, John, isn't it?
It's definitely challenging times.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
It's unique in that because of COVID, right? We have a lot more spaces we have buildings that were built that started pre-COVID and then were finished post-COVID.
Oh, good point.
And some of those tenants had signed leases at the beginning, and then there's some tenants that signed leases that never moved in. And then a lot of the new space that was built was Class A tech space, and of course, COVID changed a lot of that.
Yep.
Because of work from home and hybrid, and so a lot of these tenants are rethinking how many square feet they actually need to occupy, and so they're putting some of it, if not all of it, on the market to sublease and downsizing.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So obviously read a lot like you, and what I'm seeing obviously vacancy tick way up. You might have 20% vacancy in the office. So if you have 10,000 square feet and there's 8,000 occupied, you might have 20% or 2,000 vacant. However, that 8,000 that's occupied might not necessarily be occupied.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today. We'll call it shadow vacancy or future vacancy, because I'm driving around and I'm seeing these buildings with these high occupancies, but there's nobody in them.
There's nobody in them. I was in a building the other day, and it was a high-rise building, tech-heavy building, and I pulled into the parking garage there, and there was so much parking. But a lot of those tenants are still paying rent.
Yes.
So that to your point about the shadow or future vacancy, 60% of all sublease spaces right now are empty.
That's insane.
Yeah. So if a space is on for sublease, especially the bigger ones, they're either empty or they're not utilizing the full space because they have, skeleton crew or more work from home. What we do know is when those leases term out, that's definitely going back to the landlord as a vacancy. What we are not sure is the 40% that the tenants that are still occupying, a lot of those have changed. Some of those have actually gone back to work. Some of them have decided they, maybe downsize a little bit, but not necessarily give the whole thing back. So they've decided that they're going to work through it. So it is different, but keep in mind, 50% of all the leases that were signed pre-COVID haven't termed out yet. So, that's where we're going to start seeing some additional vacancy.
So we have the real occupied folks might downsize. They might not, but they might. And then you have the real vacancy that's leased, and then you have the sublease.
Yeah, and to your point, that those tenants, as they renew, they're downsizing on average. I think it was 10%, maybe up to 20%, and I think in some areas you could see as high as 30%. So what's going to happen is they're not necessarily gone, they're just downsizing, unless it's certain types of firms that say,
right,
work from home is work from home. I read something the other day that 65% of CEOs are starting to lean towards 5-day work weeks. So it's going to be kind of interesting, and a higher majority of them said in an effort to get to the 5-day work week, they're going to be incentivizing. There's going to be some financial incentive, but more importantly, that's how you get promoted. If you're not coming in the office, you're not getting promoted. So they're realizing, there was a study done, I think it was Stanford Economics or something like that, did a study that said that the work from home reduced efficiency anywhere between 10 and 20%.
And I know you're tied into this not just locally but nationally, right? Like your firm is part of a national network.
Yeah, so Lebro's commercial real estate is local here in Metro Phoenix, but we're tied in with TCN worldwide. So we've got, we're affiliated firms, similar type firms throughout the whole country. As a matter of fact, I was just in Chicago a few weeks ago for a principals meeting. So we met and discussed some of the, and it's interesting to listen market to market. Being in Phoenix, I feel we're very fortunate, as a lot of the other Sunbelt type states, the Floridas, Texas, even Nevada, are feeling a lot of strength because they have a lot of net migration. So they're able to fill a lot of these. but some of the other more difficult. I mean, I was in Chicago, and Chicago obviously has some challenges with a lot of vacancy, a lot of subleasing going on, and San Francisco. There were people there from San Francisco. That's been
Real problem.
complete
Portland,
debacle.
Seattle, San Francisco, New York, Chicago. Let me ask you, I know some of these, the pandemic was, call it 2019, and here we are, 4 years later. Some of these deals are just now expiring. These are 5, 7, and 10-year leases. So obviously there's a rollover. And I'm sure your industry has really looked at this hard. But at some point, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, we should know the truth, right?
Yeah, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see them coming back, and going back to the shadow vacancies. We'll see a lot of the real. There's going to be more that come on because, as you said earlier, there were always consistently around 2 million square feet of sublease, and now it's 3 to 4 times. And a lot of other places, it's similar. One of the benefits in some cities, and I'll use Phoenix as an example, in the period of like 2000 to 2008, 2009, there were about 6 million square feet of new office space coming online, brand new, getting built, coming online. Today, there's about 1 million on average. So there's less coming on, which means over time, you're going to see it absorbed, especially in areas that have an influx of tenants and businesses and things like that out of the San Franciscos or Los Angeles or Chicago, whatever it is. And as they come here and they slowly absorb the sublease space and then eventually the direct lease space, that's going to help those markets.
Right. So let's look at these numbers you brought in. We got, by the way, this is shown as occupied. 12 million square feet in San Francisco, 6 million in San Jose, 5 million in Austin, 8 million in Phoenix, 7 million in Denver, 7.5 in Seattle, 31 million in New York, 12 million in Boston. The interesting thing, this is in the millions. So these numbers represent occupied right now.
Yep.
Right? They're showing as occupied. So you start to add those up, there's some pretty big shadow vacancy coming, right?
There's a lot coming. And the other thing is that we should really touch on is a lot of these have loans on them.
Oh yeah.
And as you know, interest rates, it's kind of this perfect storm. So as these loans term out or need to readjust, the lenders now are going to take a look and say, well, hold on a second. How, that used to be, here's our rent roll.
Right.
And they take a look at the rent roll and they're like, okay, cool. You're 90% occupied. You've got 5-year leases. You've got some decent tenants, whatever. Numbers look good. Great. We'll renew you. We'll keep you at this. We'll extend. We'll charge you a little bit to do it or whatever. Now they're looking at it and now they're getting involved. These lenders are getting a little bit more, involved in looking not only at the leases. Who are these tenants? Are they occupying the space? Are they occupying all of the space? When is their lease up? Are they going to renew? So there's a lot more coming in there because otherwise these lenders are going to keep their pencils down and they're not going to be interested in offering a real favorable deal.
Right now it seems to be that the person that's trying to lease space has the upper hand.
Depending on the size. So if you're looking for a big space, you probably can, be a little bit more aggressive on what you're offering. If you're looking for smaller space, I was talking to one of the brokers in the office today, and they were out looking for space, I think right around 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. They couldn't find it. They finally found one thing, and the landlord said, these are the rates. This is what it is. There's no, don't even bother negotiating.
What happens if a building sits at 30, 40, 50% occupied for 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Do you see the industry kind of move in that direction? Because there's a lot of articles about, conversion to multifamily and, these big vacant office buildings. And, I can just as a multifamily guy, that's not happening.
It's not happening.
There's none of my tenants want to move into a high-rise office building with no common area and one bathroom in a hallway.
No, you know what I mean? And you and I talked about this actually last time I was on, that it's cost prohibitive also, right? So it's not going to happen. So a couple things that there may be that unicorn building that you can do that, but the reality is most of these buildings, if it's an older building, they probably need to tear it down. If it's a newer building, they need to figure out a way to cut up those spaces, to those 5,000 square foot spaces. Otherwise, maybe a different type of use. Life sciences are big, anything medical, that you can do. So if you can kind of make it more conducive to the stronger, keep in mind, a lot of these sublease spaces that are here right now is due to tech and call centers and things like that. I mean, you can go right through the different ones that are out there. I mean, Salesforce and Carvana it put up 260,000 square feet for sublease. DoorDash is putting 100,000 square feet up for sublease. But ironically, Google just took down a building in Chicago for almost 1 million square feet.
So I know there's a lot of folks that are in this space. What is the best way to reach you? They might be looking, maybe they're in something. I know you're national, with your network. How can people reach you?
Yeah. First of all, our website is levrose.com. That's levrose.com. Simple. So go there. My email is jrosenberg. That's BERG at levrose.com. You can reach out to me. We're happy to, share what we see. If you're in a different city, we have relations all over the country. We're happy to talk about it. Anything that you have going on. And I get a lot of calls from a lot of my, friends and people that I know that just say, hey, we've got a lease coming up. What do you recommend we do, whether they're in town or not?
I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
You're the best, bud.
Thanks. Good seeing you.
Cheers.